I am 48 years old and my younger sister Diana is 46. For as long as I can remember, we never got along. She always seemed to have a chip on her shoulder and our relationship was fraught with tension. The moment we graduated high school, we went our separate ways. I focused on furthering my education while she chose to live with her boyfriend, who happened to be wealthy. This allowed her to live independently, a privilege our parents could never have afforded. Diana's attitude was unapologetically rebellious, and she made no effort to hide her disdain for our parents' attempts to guide her. They, in turn, didn't push her to reconsider her choices, letting her live as she pleased. By the age of 20, Diana had given birth to twin girls and a year later, a son. However, despite being a mother of 3, she never seemed to take responsibility for her life. She didn't work, relying solely on her boyfriend's financial support. They never married, which in hindsight was a mistake, as she would have been entitled to alimony had they ever split up. That's exactly what happened when she discovered that her boyfriend was cheating on her. He left her, though he continued paying child support, but chose to relinquish his parental rights, effectively disappearing from their lives. Diana found herself in a tough spot. She was 24 with 3 small children and she was on her own. It wasn't easy, but as much as we didn't get along, I couldn't ignore her plight. My parents, who were getting older, had already done what they could, but they weren't in a position to do much more. Despite our strained relationship, I felt the pressure to step in and help, not only because she needed it but also because our parents couldn't offer the level of assistance that was required. So I did what I could. I gave her money when I could spare it, though it wasn't a lot. She had no degree and little work experience, which made finding a well-paying job impossible. At first she struggled, and it was clear she didn't know how to manage both her children and a career. While I was busy with my own responsibilities, I couldn't stand by and let her children suffer, so I helped whenever I could. In the beginning, Diana worked minimum-wage jobs that offered flexible hours. This was ideal because it allowed her to return home quickly, thus avoiding the costs of a babysitter. But the cost of childcare was too much for her to manage alone, so she had to rely on me. I didn't mind. I knew she had no choice. But what troubled me was the way she started treating her children. She grew resentful of them, and, to be honest, I began to worry that she saw them as obstacles standing in the way of her own ambitions. The children complained constantly about the way she treated them. She was harsh and punitive, scolding them for the smallest things. It broke my heart to see them suffer. I visited whenever I could, not because I wanted to spend time with Diana, but to ensure the children were okay. They confided in me, telling me how they were mistreated by their mother. It was a sad, almost painful existence for them, and I began to wonder if there was anything I could do to take them away from that situation. But without legal rights, I felt powerless. I couldn't just take them, no matter how much I wanted to. As time went on, Diana's relationships with men came and went, and with every failure, her resentment towards her children deepened. She blamed them for every failed relationship, convinced that any man she was with would leave her once they discovered she had 3 children. She always seemed to hold that against them. I tried to reason with her, tried to tell her that it wasn't their fault, but she refused to see it. Instead, she continued to belittle her kids, reminding them how their father had abandoned her and how they were the reason she couldn't find happiness. Her narcissism only grew over the years. She never saw the real problem, her own behavior. It became apparent to me that her children were not only neglected but also scared of her. They feared her harsh words, her anger, and her constant threats. They lived in a constant state of anxiety, and I knew I had to do something. But despite my desire to step in, I couldn't. I knew I was not in a legal position to change things. But the children, despite everything, came to trust me. I became their go-to person whenever they had a problem. They were too scared to talk to their mother, but they knew they could count on me. It was no surprise when, on their 18th birthday, they chose to leave Diana's house and live with me instead. Diana was furious. She couldn't understand why they'd choose me over her after all she had done for them. She told me I should have stepped in sooner if I was going to raise her children. But I didn't feel the need to argue. The truth was simple. She hadn't raised them. They had raised themselves while she was either at work or chasing after men who didn't want to deal with her children. Diana chose to cut off all contact with our parents and me after her children made the decision to live with me. I wasn't surprised. It was classic Diana, punishing everyone around her for her own misfortunes. She was furious and wanted nothing to do with anyone. The children were better off without her, though I didn't want to say it out loud. 7 years have passed and they're all doing well. My nephew, who had struggled in the beginning, is now a pediatrician. One of my nieces has a degree in literature and works as a teacher, while the other runs a hair salon. I helped them all get started with business loans, and I'm incredibly proud of their success. They came a long way from the home they grew up in, a place where they felt unwanted and unloved. Now they're living on their own, and even though they spent only a few years living with me, it never felt like they were fully home. They were often away at college or out living their own lives. 2 years have passed since they moved out, and I couldn't be more thrilled for them. They've become strong, independent adults, and I'm proud to have played a role in that. I never expected anything in return for all I did for them. I did it because it was the right thing to do. They were just kids, and I wasn't going to turn my back on them just because my sister was unable to care for them. I don't have children of my own, and I never married, but I always had a soft spot for them. They needed someone, and since my parents were too old to step in, I did. I never thought about it as a sacrifice. It just felt like the right thing to do. A week ago I celebrated my 48th birthday. It was a great time, surrounded by friends and family. My nephew even organized the whole thing, covering the costs despite my insistence to pay for everything. He was so proud of the fact that he could do something nice for me after all I had done for them. After the party, the three of them sat me down. They told me that now that they were financially stable, they wanted to express their gratitude by giving me a check. I tried to refuse, explaining that I didn't need the money, but they insisted. It wasn't about paying me back. They said it was about acknowledging everything I had done for them, the encouragement and the love. It was their way of saying thank you. I was deeply moved by their gesture, and I was eager to share it on social media to thank them for everything they had done. But when I did, I received a message from Diana. We hadn't spoken in years, so I didn't expect anything. Her response shocked me. She claimed to have seen my post and wanted to reconnect with her children. She said she missed them and wanted to make amends for the mistakes she had made in the past. I found it hard to believe her. If she really missed them, why had she never reached out before? Why only now when they were financially secure? I ignored her message, but she called me later that evening. I was frustrated, but she insisted that I help bridge the gap between her and her children. Her motives were clear to me. She wasn't interested in reconciliation. She was after the money. She could have reached out to them directly, but instead, she came to me, showing no humility. She didn't even attempt to apologize properly. She still expected her children to reach out to her, even though she had treated them terribly for years. I told her she didn't deserve anything. I was disgusted by her behavior. She accused me of taking everything from her children to the money they'd decided to give me. At that moment I realized I couldn't stay silent anymore. If she wanted to act entitled, then I would take her at her word. I decided to accept the check, not because I needed it, but because she didn't deserve a single penny. Diana has since been crying on social media, claiming I'm the bad person in all of this, but I don't feel bad. I did what was right for her children, and I've done more than my share. Now my relatives are telling me I've gone too far, that I'm being greedy and I should apologize, but I won't. I know I'm not in the wrong. The years have passed, but the events that transpired between Diana and her children still linger in my mind. It's been a week since Diana's message arrived, and I've been bombarded by calls and messages from family members who had spoken with her. At first they scolded me, pointing out what they believed were my mistakes. It became exhausting, especially since I was overwhelmed with work and had been unable to respond sooner. However, after talking to my nephew and nieces, I realized it was time to speak my truth. They had heard about the drama from other relatives, and despite the pressure, they made it clear that they supported me and believed I had done the right thing. My nephew especially was outspoken about the whole situation. He had never considered Diana as a maternal figure, and he was blunt in his assessment. Growing up, he always blamed her for being absent and emotionally neglectful, and my nieces agreed. They had seen their mother's inability to put their needs first, and it had left a lasting impact on them. The emotional scars from her cruelty and neglect were evident, and it was impossible for them to reconcile with the person she had become. They had grown up under her roof, but it wasn't their home. It was just a place they had to survive in. I had always been there for them, a constant presence in their lives when their own mother was too busy with her own problems to care. For years, they had come to me when things were difficult, when they needed someone to talk to, someone who wouldn't judge them. I became their safe place, their refuge from the emotional storms that Diana had created. And when they reached adulthood, they made it clear who had truly been there for them. They left their mother's house and chose to live with me instead. Diana naturally was furious. She felt betrayed, claiming that I had stolen her children. The truth was, they had taken control of their own lives, choosing to leave the environment that had never felt like home. They were not running away from her, they were simply running toward a better, more loving situation. As expected, Diana responded by cutting off all communication with our family. She severed ties with everyone, including our elderly parents, who were left to deal with the fallout in silence. For 6 long years there had been no word from her. Our parents stayed out of the conflict, never getting involved. But it seemed strange to me that they hadn't spoken to her at all. I knew they had their own reasons, but I couldn't help but feel that their silence was somewhat out of place. As the years went by, the children thrived. My nephew, who had once struggled in school, was now in medical school, working his way toward becoming a pediatrician. One of my nieces earned a degree in literature and became a teacher, while the other turned her passion for beauty into a successful hair salon business. They had all found their paths, and I had supported them along the way. It wasn't about money, it was about helping them build their future. I was proud of them. I had never expected anything in return for what I had done. I did it because it was the right thing to do. They were just kids who needed someone to step in when their mother failed them. But now, I could see that they were deeply grateful for my support. They were thriving, and their successes were a testament to their resilience. A week ago I celebrated my 48th birthday. The day was filled with laughter, love, and joy. My nephew took it upon himself to organize the entire event, even covering all the expenses, despite my insistence on footing the bill. I tried to refuse, but he insisted. He was proud of what he had achieved, and he wanted to show his appreciation. After the party, the 3 of them, my nephew and 2 nieces, sat me down. They said they wanted to express their gratitude in a way that felt meaningful to them. They handed me a check. It wasn't about paying me back for everything I had done. They said it was a gesture of thanks for the encouragement, the support, and the love I had given them over the years. I was deeply moved by their kindness. But I tried to explain that I didn't need the money. They insisted, saying it was the only way they knew how to show their appreciation. I had been thinking about sharing this moment on social media just to show how much their gesture meant to me. But Diana's actions were still fresh in my mind. We hadn't spoken in years, and I assumed that sharing it would not bother her. However, I was wrong. I received a message from her shortly after posting. She had seen my post and, predictably, wanted to re-enter the picture. She claimed to have missed her children and acknowledged her mistakes in the past. She said she wanted a second chance to be a mother to them. I found it hard to believe. If she truly cared, why hadn't she contacted them over the years? Why had she remained silent all this time? I ignored her message, but she persisted, calling me in the evening. That was when I snapped. She insisted that I help her reconnect with her children, but I refused. I knew exactly what she was after. It wasn't about mending her relationship with them, it was about money. She had no real desire to rebuild a relationship with her children. If she did, she would have contacted them directly, not used me as an intermediary. Her sense of entitlement was astounding. She couldn't even bring herself to apologize for the years of mistreatment. Instead, she was focused on what she could gain from them now that they were financially secure. In the heat of the moment, I told her she didn't deserve any of it. I was disgusted by her behavior. She immediately turned it around, accusing me of stealing everything from her, her children, and now her money. I had tried to avoid this confrontation for years, but now that it had come to this point, I wasn't backing down. What followed was a whirlwind of family drama. Diana took to social media, trying to paint me as the villain, as the one who had wronged her. She tried to twist the story to make herself seem like the victim, but the truth was clear. Her children had chosen me. They had left her not because they were ungrateful, but because they could no longer tolerate her toxic behavior. The comments on my post quickly escalated as my nephew and nieces started chiming in, recounting the painful episodes of their childhood. They shared the stories of how Diana had treated them, how she had blamed them for every failure in her life. It didn't take long before she began deleting her comments, trying to erase the evidence of her lies. But by then, it was too late. The truth was out, and there was no going back for her. Her attempts to backtrack only made things worse. She ended up blocking everyone, including her children, and messaging me directly, accusing me of ruining her life. But I didn't feel bad. She had brought this upon herself. She was the one who had abandoned her children emotionally, and now, when they were successful, she wanted to worm her way back in, all because of the money they were making. I had no interest in having any more of her drama in my life. I was content with how things had turned out. Her children were thriving, and I had been a part of that. Diana could continue to live in her delusions, but I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. A day later, she messaged me again, trying to make me feel guilty for what I had said about her online. But I wasn't interested. I had nothing to apologize for. I had done what was right for her children, and I would do it again if I had to. Now, Diana has been silent. She can't erase the truth, and I can finally breathe easy knowing I did what was best for her children. They are living proof that despite the challenges, love and support can make all the difference. And as for Diana, I've made my peace. I don't need to be a part of her drama anymore. We've all moved on. The story conveys powerful lessons about responsibility, resilience, and the complexities of family relationships. It illustrates how love and care can be transformative, even in difficult circumstances, and how standing up for what is right, despite personal struggles, can make a profound difference in the lives of others. The narrator's unwavering support for her nieces and nephew, despite the challenges of dealing with a difficult sister, shows that sometimes the most important thing we can do is be there for those who need us most, even when it's not easy. The choices made in this story remind us that family isn't just about shared blood. It's about the actions we take to nurture, support, and protect each other, especially in times of hardship. For an elderly audience, the message is clear. It's never too late to make a positive impact on the lives of others. Even if the world around us seems unfair or difficult, the love and care we give to others have the power to help them thrive, just as the narrator's actions helped the children flourish despite their rocky start in life. Moreover, the story also speaks to the importance of setting boundaries and taking a stand for what is right, even if it means standing up to family members. Ultimately, the choices we make reflect our values, and when we act with compassion and integrity, we can leave a lasting legacy of love and strength. Thank you so much for watching. If you found value in this video and the lessons shared, please comment 1 below to let us know. We'd love to hear your thoughts and reflections on the story. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on more real-life stories and life lessons. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and feel free to share it with your friends or family who might benefit from it. We appreciate your support and can't wait to hear how this story resonated with you.